Let me get to the news. Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook is fighting President Trump's attempts to fire her, vowing yesterday to file a lawsuit. This just one day after the president said he would remove Cook from the Board of Governors over allegations of mortgage fraud. Cook's lawyer, Abbe Lowell, said in a statement that Trump has no authority to remove the governor, adding, quote, his attempt to fire her is based solely on a referral letter, lacks any factual or legal basis. Cook has not been charged with any crime. The central bank also weighed in on this issue for the first time yesterday, noting that, quote, long tenures and removal protections for governors serve as a vital safeguard, while adding the Fed will abide by any court decision. President Trump was asked about Cook's lawsuit and the Fed's response during his cabinet meeting yesterday.
She seems to have had an infraction, and she can't have an infraction, especially that infraction, because she's in charge of, if you think about it, mortgages, and we need people that are 100% above board, and it doesn't seem like she was. We'll have a majority very shortly, so that'll be great. Once we have a majority, housing is going to swing, and it's going to be great.
The Fed will abide by any court decision.
Thank you very much for reading that.
You abide by a court decision.
I abide by the court, yeah. I abide by the court.
All right, let's bring in New York Times opinion columnist David French and Capitol Bureau Chief and senior Washington columnist for Politico, Rachel Bade, joins us. It's good to have you both with us this morning. So, again, another sort of gray area as to whether or not this is retribution or not, but it sure looks like it.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it all comes down to, because we have the Article 1 branch. As David Drucker said yesterday, the Supreme Branch, the branch that Madison intended to be supreme when he drafted the Constitution of the United States, David French, we have them, well, they're taking a holiday. They're taking a nap. They're like, they ate too much at Cracker Barrel, and they're going to sleep for the next couple months on the couch. So it really, once again, comes down to the courts, and I find it hard to believe that any court is going to go along with the president's decision to fire somebody, again, for clear political reasons.
Well, I think you're going to see that the courts are going to require more than a referral letter. They're going to require more than some sort of accusation that's sort of floating in the ether before they're going to say that this firing satisfies the statutory grounds. By statute, there's supposed to be no firings unless there's for cause here, for cause. This is not a position that is supposed to be within the total discretion of the president. And the Fed is a kind of a unique entity in American law. The Supreme Court has already signaled in a recent previous decision that it views the Fed differently than it views other agencies that are under the president. The Fed is not entirely under the president. It's got a unique structure. So I find it very difficult to believe that the court would allow a firing to go forward on nothing more than what we've seen so far. There's no adjudication. There's no finding of guilt. There's very little evidence in the public square. So, yes, it does seem to be political targeting centered around an allegation for which there is so far insufficient evidence. So if Cook is going to file a lawsuit, all of this is going to be adjudicated. But on firing her on the basis that we've seen so far, hard to believe that'll be upheld.
Yeah, we should repeat that Ms. Cook hasn't been charged with anything. There's no specifics in this accusation of mortgage fraud. She said it was news to her when she heard it from President Trump. The Wall Street Journal is writing about this, the editorial board asking, what if Trump runs the Federal Reserve? The board writes, this isn't a prudent fight for Mr. Trump to pick, and it isn't in the best interest of the country. We know from history what happens to central banks that become arms of politicians. See inflation in Turkey under President Erdogan and in Argentina for decades. Richard Nixon jawboned then Chair Arthur Burns to keep monetary policy easy, and the result was the 1970s Great Inflation. But if he wants to change the Fed, Mr. Trump has ample opportunity through appointments to the board, including a successor for Mr. Powell as chair next year. That doesn't seem to be enough for Mr. Trump, who in his affluence thinks he can run monetary policy. Has he considered what politically malleable Fed might do when the progressive left takes charge under another president. Of course he hasn't. Mr. Trump is all about short-term tactics and personal political advantage. Institutional integrity bores him. But if he succeeds in taking over the Fed, he and Republicans will own the results and whatever inflation returns. So obviously, David French, the sort of independence of the Fed board has been core to its existence since it began, since it was put into place. This obviously would make it a political arm if Donald Trump could just ad hoc get rid of people and replace them with loyalists and make decisions on the board not based on data around the economy, but on the whims of a president.
Well, absolutely. You saw in this sort of opening segment that y'all ran through of all of the effusive praise of Trump. Trump doesn't like independent thinking. He doesn't like independent minds. He wants people who do exactly what he tells them to do, and then will reflect back to him his own perceptions of his own wisdom and glory. There's nothing about this that implies some sort of serious monetary policy, something that implies that there's some real expertise that he wants brought to bear here that's lacking. What he wants is total subservience. And look, he wants to run the economy hot right now for his purposes so that he can brag about what he's done. And the future is not on his mind. He wants it hot now for his own reasons. And the legacy of inflation that could lead to down the line, well, that's somebody else's problem, not his problem. But it's important to remember the Fed is designed to resist exactly this kind of pressure. And this is going to come down once again to a court battle.
So, Rev, the president wants to run the Fed's monetary policy. He wants to run Intel. He wants to run defense contractors. He threatens CEOs, and then they come and make deals with him. He wants to run universities and colleges. He wants to run what's taught in classrooms. He wants to decide football mascot teams' names in Washington, D.C. He wants to run police forces in D.C. and Chicago and other cities. We had a story last week about how he wants to run absolutely everything. And the question is, where's Congress and where are the courts?
And that's the real question. Are we going to see the guardrails enforced here that this country's built on? We're talking about going into the 250th anniversary of the nation next year. What kind of nation are we going to have when a president can do whatever and jokes about whether or not he wants to be a dictator or not? Oh, shucks, I really don't want to be a dictator. But obviously he thinks he is. And he uses very clear signals here. I mean, are we forgetting when he raises these questions on the person in Federal Reserve that he is a 34 convicted felon doing this and was found guilty of having fraudulent things with businesses himself? I mean, we're acting like if there's anybody that ever sat in the Oval Office that shouldn't be bringing up ethics and legalities, it's Donald Trump.
Well, John Bolton in classified documents, it's rich. It's rich as Cracker Barrel breakfast. Hey, with the old logo, with Uncle Rufus or Festus or whatever his name is. Oh, look, you got there you go.
Got my logo.
MS Now, that is a look. That's our logo, and we like it. Nobody's going to change it, you woke, loose beta males. Heteronormative freaks, what are you doing? We are now, baby, we are now. So with all that behind us, Rachel, let's bring you in. You can look at Congress two ways. The first way you can look at Congress is you can look at it and say, well, where are the Republicans? And that's the question that will be asked until Donald Trump leaves Washington, D.C. But the second question is, where are the Democrats? We've had AOC and Bernie actually setting the woods on fire, as old Hank Williams would have sung. But, you know, people like Norm Ornstein, who we're going to have on later on today, say, why aren't they holding hearings, not only in D.C., but across the nation? Why aren't the Democrats doing more to push back hard, to fight back hard, to grab the public's imagination and not just, you know, not just have their insult du jour of Donald Trump and then go back into hiding?
Look, I think it's easy to say fight, 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 but the devil's in the details there for the Democrats. I mean, everybody on the left is saying they want to see Democrats in Congress stick it to Donald Trump. But what do they mean by that? I mean, a good example on this, I think in September when lawmakers come back, there's going to be a big fight about a government shutdown. Do Democrats refuse to fund the government unless Donald Trump rolls back this big, beautiful bill that he passed that cut Medicaid? Do they say, you know, you need to stop sending the National Guard around the country? You need to reverse on that, or we're not going to fund the government? I would contend that that's not a battle they should be picking. I mean, are they going to be willing to potentially take the blame if they're helping keep agencies closed and all of a sudden checks are not making their way to people around the nation? I just think, you know, the Democratic Party, they're very divided right now. You know, you have a wing of the party that they want to see something extreme. They want to see something some Democrats sort of throw down. But what do they mean by that? That's right. Always the tricky part, because they can repel swing voters and they want to win back the majority, and the majority in the House runs through more moderate districts.
Yeah, Nally, what are you hearing about what happens when Democrats and Republicans come back?
I think the last specter of the near government shutdown hangs really heavy over Democrats' heads right now, Joe. Almost all of the Democrats that I've spoken to speak about what they see as positive forms of pushback. They point, for example, to Texas Democrats leaving the state to deny Republicans a quorum, even though it didn't fundamentally change Republicans' ability to reshape the map in Texas. They point to Senator Cory Booker's very lengthy filibuster on the floor, even though he wasn't filibustering anything and didn't actually have a policy agenda to enact there, other than showing that Democrats still have animation and pushback. And so I think a lot of it is just how can they capture energy? How can they bring awareness? Because they don't have gavel power. They can't have subpoena power until they take back the House majority. Their pushback mechanisms have always been pretty muted. They don't have a ton of options. And so awareness and shining a light is really one of the key functions that they have. And honestly, something that Rachel said really resonates. As I've gone to town halls for Democratic members, the Democrats who show up there who are voters say, I just want more fight. And I'll say to them, OK, what does that look like? And they say, I don't really know. I just want to see that someone cares. I just want to see that there is pushback. And so that is just a key piece of it, showing that there's life. And if that comes to a government shutdown, I've had Democratic members say to me, this is our only point of leverage. If a government shutdown happens, the party in power is typically the one that's blamed. And Democrats know that. They see that. And my sense this time is that, unlike last time where Senate Democrats sort of turned tail on House Democrats and ultimately gave Republicans the votes that they needed to avoid a government shutdown then, my understanding is that this time it's likely to look a little bit different. They're also likely to do a short-term continuing resolution. So maybe that means we do this again by the end of the year, which, of course, is the way that things function in Washington now.
All right.